Live from the News Hub at Adisawe, Kanda in Accra. This is News at 10. We're live on TV3 on 3FM 92.7. You can also follow our live stream on facebook.com/TV3GH and 3news.com. Let's begin with the summaries of today's major news highlights. The Auditor General, Daniel Domilevo, has applied to the Attorney General to grant him powers to prosecute those indicted in the annual Auditor General's report. Addressing news conference in Accra, he noted the current system is always characterized with repetitive stories of financial mismanagement. And government, through the Ministry of Health, has recruited more than 17,000 medical practitioners within 13 months. Out of the figure, 245 have received financial clearance since January this year and have been posted to outstations. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health has secured another financial clearance for 4,000 private medical practitioners to work in government health facilities across, according to the Ministry's Public Relations Office. And also tonight, the cost of residential property in Nima is rapidly going up. TV3's Natalie Ford, who visited the area, reports that residents are complaining, saying this is unreasonable, with many houses in the community lacking toilet facilities. In business, GCB Bank has shut down 31 branches of the defunct UT and Capital banks after it successfully completed the full integration of the systems of these two collapsed banks to offer customers a wide network of some 183 branches across the country. On the international front tonight, Jacob Zuma's future as South Africa's president is under threat as senior politicians hold an emergency meeting in Johannesburg. 20 of the African National Congress's leaders are discussing Mr. Zuma's tenure a day after he reportedly refused to step down. Pressure is now growing for Mr. Zuma, who is facing corruption allegations, to go ahead of this week's State of the Nation address. His term is due to expire in 2019. This is News at 10, and those were our major news highlights. Remember, you can hear us live on 3FM 92.7 and also on our live stream on Facebook and 3news.com. Let's start with our first story. The GCB Bank has shut down 31 branches of the defunct UT and Capital banks after it successfully completed the full integration of the systems of these two collapsed banks to offer customers a wide network of some 183 branches across the country. There is more in the following report.
The integration, according to the management of GCB in a statement, included the consolidation of core banking applications, procedures and processes, the training of staff and the streamlining of the branch network. The statement said GCB has retained 22 out of the 53 branches of the defunct institutions based on their location and accessibility to customers. As a result of the integration, staff numbers have been rationalized and GCB has absorbed almost 70% of the permanent staff of those banks. Contract staff services, which are no longer required, have been dispensed with. It added departing employees are to be paid a month's salary in lieu of notice plus any earned leave since August last year. The Bank of Ghana last year approved the takeover of Capital Bank and UT Bank by the GCB Bank Limited after it revoked their licenses. The BOG explained that the action became necessary due to severe impairment of their capital. GCB was selected among 3 others on the basis of purchase price, cost of funding, branches to be retained, staff to be employed, and impact on the acquiring bank's capital adequacy ratio.
On the Electricity Company of Ghana has rejected rumors of an impending load shedding in the next few days due to the shutting down of the Ituabo power plant. Though the problem involves generation of power from the Volta River Authority, ECG says customers will not be affected. Meanwhile, it has initiated steps to compensate customers who were affected due to the crashing of its software 2 months ago.
The managing director of ECG, Engineer Boakye Appiah, was speaking at the official launch of Jubilee celebrations of the company. Although he emphasized on the immense contributions of ECG, he was extremely worried about challenges which have bedeviled the company. From 2012 to 2016, the ECG had to contend with load shedding exercise due to the reduction of water in Akonsombo Dam. This situation continued and has affected its revenue base. As to how much was lost, the managing director, Engineer Boakye Appiah, declined to mention.
It affected our finances and our financial performance because we had less energy to sell during that time. I would say that I do not have the figures right now.
But can you give us estimates?
Well, I do not want to, at this time, give any estimates. We should be very, very factual.
One major disturbing issue to the ECG is the directive by the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, PURC, to compensate customers. They were badly affected due to the crashing of the software owned by the Electricity Company of Ghana some few months ago.
It's a process. So once you have admitted that will comply, it's a process.
So when should customers expect? Are you still going to negotiations or something?
I said it is a process. The compensation issue, the process for compensating customers is, the activities is a process that we have to go through.
At the launch of the Golden Jubilee celebrations, board chairman of ECG pledged huge commitments to roll out renewable energy policy in the coming months.
And indeed, in many instances, are beginning to even sell power to the grid. What does it mean when the world itself is saying we are more interested in renewable power than in fossil fuel being used?
The Deputy Minister of Energy in charge of power, William Edu, reassured workers of government's commitment not to lay off anyone under the concession agreement.
The 25-year original tenure has, like I said earlier, been reduced to 20 years, and the 20% Ghanaian participation has been increased to a majority share of not less than 51% of Ghanaian citizens' participation.
Other speakers implored management and staff of ECG to improve on its customer response.
On the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, COPEC has raised concerns with the latest increase in fuel prices and plans to lead some petroleum users to protest at the Energy Ministry on Wednesday, February 7. Executive Secretary of COPEC, Duncan Amoah, says the action to impress on government to scrap the B15 15% special levy.
One, to get the government to act immediately against rising fuel prices in Ghana. We've seen this since September. Prices have only, pointed upwards. And as we speak today, prices are still rising. We think that the excuses have become too much. We'll hit the streets together with the Industrial Commercial Workers Union, together with the committed drivers, together with the other driver bodies across the country. We would have a free democratic expression of our disgust at the way and manner fuel prices is treating all of us. So Wednesday, 7 a.m. in the morning, together with all the unions, General Petroleum and Chemical Workers Union, COPEC, committed drivers, concerned drivers, all other stakeholders will take to the streets to further express our misgiving about high fuel prices in Ghana.
The majority leader in Parliament, Oseche Mensah Bonsu, has expressed fear Parliament in the next 4 to 5 years will be full of money bags and not people with competence. He says people are now greasing the palms of constituents just to enable them enter Parliament. The Swami MPs worry the act has the potential of breeding corruption, which will be difficult to fight. He spoke with my colleague Evelyn Tengma.
The Center for Democratic Development, in collaboration with Westminster Foundation, in a report indicated that members of Parliament and other persons wanting to go to Parliament spend close to $86,000 on campaign just to be elected. The majority leader in Parliament agreed the amount could be true, adding, depending on the constituency one is contesting, it could be more.
What is the typical constituency that they are talking about? Because depending on the constituency that you are contesting, you may end up paying more, and some may also pay less. I think it's something that as a country we must confront.
Sitting MPs are often under pressure from non-MPs in the constituencies, forcing some MPs to borrow heavily to contest.
The member who spends that much comes to Parliament and his party doesn't win the election. You expect him to stay here. He'll be following outside to look for money.
And that affects Parliament's...
It affects the business of Parliament. It affects the quality of work that we do. If the member's party wins, what do you think? And he's made a minister. He's made a deputy minister. What do you think will happen? Certainly, when contracts are awarded, corners may be cut, and the nation will suffer. If we want to fight corruption, bribery and corruption in the system, we should look at this, because it's one of the factors that engender corruption. Except that whenever you raise it, people are jittery. Nobody wants to deal with it.
He added, parliamentary business is affected because when MPs realize that Parliament is not lucrative after all, they abandon parliamentary duties to engage in other businesses.
The people come here, they've depleted their own coffers. Some of them have gone for huge amounts from banks they need to pay back. Right? So he comes and he realizes that, oh, Parliament is not the gold mine that he thought it was. So he then has to foray outside to look for contracts, to look for businesses, which he can indulge in to replenish the loans that he took. And then also have something to reposition himself for the battles ahead. So members then don't have the correct focus to do parliamentary business.
So would you then say that we should get a law to put a cap on the money MPs spend to be in Parliament or to come to Parliament?
I'm wondering how we're going to do that. What really we have to do is to encourage the political parties to do serious introspection in the way they organize their own internal primaries. It's not helping democracy in any way.
He laments Parliament is taking a nosedive as a result. MP for Kita, Richard Kwashiga, says most of them have the desire to serve their people, but that desire weakens after entering Parliament.
What drives a lot of us is to serve. But it's only when you get in that you realize that, look, even the desire to serve has to be paid for. And so it weakens the resolve and that desire, that energy with which people want to serve.
He says some could even spend about 500,000 cedis.
But if you go to even large constituencies like, let's say, Ashama, for instance, you're likely to spend more. And again, also, that also depends on the number of people who are vying. If, let's say, you have 4 or 5 people, 6 people, At every stage, somebody will want to outwit the other, you know, and it's becoming, unfortunately, you could spend that much at the primaries and then the main elections itself, which becomes, that is, you are moving from intra to the inter campaign elections, where you will also be required to spend more money. You know, so putting the two together, a candidate could spend between 700 to even $1 million putting the two together. It's a real expensive venture.
It surely doesn't look like it's easy to be a member of parliament. This is still News at 10. We're live on TV3 and 3FM 92.7 as well. We'll be right back with more news. Welcome back. Now, the Ghana Water Company Limited has begun rationing water in most parts of the country as a result of the dry season and environmental degradation. The company laments its efforts at extracting enough water for treatment is derailed by these activities and conditions, accounting for inadequate supply of water to consumers. With the exception of the Eastern and Ashanti regions, all the other regions have been affected by the rationing, with the Western region being the worst affected. The Ghana Water Company is only able to utilize about 40% of the capacity of the treatment plant in the Western region because the water level in the River Pra, one of the water sources there, is very low. In the case of the Northern region, the Nawuni and Yendi rivers are almost drying up, hence the inability of the Ghana Water Company to extract enough water for productions. The situation is no different in Wa, as the Black Volta is heavily polluted and the water levels are low. However, water is not being rationed in Wa since the population is not too big and the treatment plant is able to reach everyone. On the situation in the Bono Ahafo region, is the level of the water in Tano River has also gone down, affecting the supply of water in Sunyani. We're being told that the situation in Accra is not as bad as the water is being managed and only rationed in Tema, Teshi and surrounding areas due to the shutdown of the Teshi desalination plant. Right, so let's go on to the telephone lines and speak with Atta Ahin, who is the Vice President of the Coalition of NGOs on Water and Sanitation, CONIWAS. Good evening, sir. Thank you. We're grateful for your time. So, rationing water, does it sound to you as a surprise, or you saw this coming?
Well, thank you very much. Let me say that it didn't come to us as a surprise at all, because as a coalition, we have constantly drawn attention to this. And we have always saw that we could come to this state. Because, you see, as a country, we have not prioritized access to safe water enough. We have not provided adequate financing, such that Ghana Water Company is able to engage in massive expansions. Tariffs are unrealistic. Illegal connections are happening. Galamsey, almighty Galamsey, illegal mining is taking place. And let me say that the fight against Galamsey saw a massive boost last year with support of the media. But let's not tickle ourselves and laugh yet. Galamsey is still practiced in many areas, polluting raw water sources. You mentioned Nawuni. We were there very recently. And if you look at the level of pollution, it's alarming. And yet we know that these are the sources from which we get our safe water. Why are we unable to protect these sources?
So Ms. Ahin, let's zone in on what we did wrong. How did we get here? I know you're narrating the actual situation of these polluted rivers, but
yes,
how did we get here? Was it through our own negligence, or we just didn't care enough to protect the water bodies?
You have used the word I was going to use. It's negligence. We have neglected the sources that give us our safe water. And you know that no strategy for poverty reduction can ignore people's vital requirements for water. And yet we do not accord it the attention that it deserves. It's mind-boggling. If we know that access to safe water drives our health, drives education, drives food security, then we should be able to, pay a lot more attention to it. Other countries are doing it. We have done well. We have done quite well when it comes to access to safe water. But when it comes to the urban areas, I think that we are still struggling. And we need to redouble our efforts to ensure that as a lower middle income country, we are able to provide access to safe water to our people. That is the basic thing that we can provide.
But would you say that as a country, irrespective of which government has been in power, would you say there have been enough investment into water resources?
Not at all. In fact, if you look at the statistics and if you look at the historical background, we have not done badly. Governments have done quite well. In fact, we are currently at 89% when you look at the joint monitoring platform. However, you see, we have not been able to keep, pace with the development that is going on, especially the urbanization. We know that the country is developing. Populations are becoming more urbanized. And therefore, we need to take the steps which will take us there. If you look at our budget for, let me even say, water and sanitation, woefully inadequate. It's one of the lowest in the sub-region. And I think we cannot continue to do that when we expect that all our citizens by 2025 will have access to safe water.
You are talking about
put in our strategic plan.
You're talking about taking steps that will get us there. I assume that you're referring to the fact that we needed to put in place sufficient infrastructure to catch up with the sprawling urban populations.
Perfect.
So what are these steps? What do you want to see in place to ensure that we are ready to meet the demands of the rising population?
We want to see a lot more funding going into the water and sanitation sector. Because when you invest more in this sector, you are reducing your health, burden. You are improving your education and food security. But without putting in place adequate financing, there is no way you can expand the infrastructure. Sometimes I pity Ghana Water Company. You see, we blame them for everything. And many of the things we blame them for, they don't have any control when it comes to financing. How much can they generate? They don't even meet, they don't break even, let alone talk about making profit to be able to invest in infrastructure.
Right.
And yet they don't receive enough. And the water sources, they are not in charge when it comes to controlling and protecting them. And I think that as a state, we really need to sit up and do the right thing, which will take us to where we want to be.
We're grateful for your time. Thank you extremely. We really need to sit up. That's the warning coming there from the experts as the country rations water. It's very worrying. And if you watch Agenda on Sunday and today Monday, you would have heard a discussion that pretty soon, in shorter than 2030, we should be importing water if the trend continues. Well, so that's a warning there. Let's move to other stories. The owner of a shrine at Katapo in the West Municipality, where a human head was found last week, has surrendered to the police. Midawo Gbeje reported to the police following a TV3 report that the police had declared him wanted. Meanwhile, an Amasaman magistrate court has remanded him and 4 others into prison custody until Monday, February 19.
Midawo Gbeje reported himself to the police in the company of his counsel, Maurice Ampao. Even though the fetish priest reportedly claimed ownership of the shrine, he denied knowledge of how the suspected human head came to the shrine. He was immediately sent to join the 4 others at the Amasaman Magistrate Court who had been picked up during a police raid on charges of murder. All 5 accused persons pleaded not guilty and were remanded into prison custody. It will be recalled that TV3 carried a story on the discovery of human head at a shrine at Katapo in the Gan West Municipality on Sunday. 4 persons, 19-year-old Selassie Watanu, Kwame Gbeje, 20, Anani Dunyon, 39, and Lawson Yao, 52, were arrested at the shrine, whilst the owner of the shrine was declared wanted. The human head, which was in an advanced stage of decomposition, had a piece of paper with telephone numbers tied around it. The human head has been deposited at the police hospital morgue to aid further investigations. The suspects, during interrogations, told the police they have worked with a fetish priest for periods ranging between 5 and 20 years.
And on that pretty gory note, we end News at 10. Thank you very much for your time. On behalf of the crew, good night. There is more news at 3news.com.